Angela Rayner might present herself as the voice of the working class, but her performance at Prime Minister's questions, when Oliver Dowden challenged her, was anything but convincing.
What is the Deputy Prime Minister's definition of working people?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, let me start by welcoming the honourable gentleman to his new place. Today is our first exchange, Mr Speaker, since he pushed for a July general election. And if his own side hasn't offered him a peerage, I certainly would have. And Mr Speaker, the definition of working people are the people that the Tory party have failed for the last 14 years.
Oliver Dowden.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister stood on a manifesto promising not to raise taxes on working people. It now appears she can't even define who working people are. So I'll give her another go. There are 5 million small business owners in this country. Are they working people?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't know how the shadow Deputy Prime Minister can stand there with a straight face when it was the small businesses, the working people of this country that paid the price of them crashing the economy, sending interest rates scoring. I think he needs to learn his own lessons in opposition.
Dowden asked a straightforward question. Did she agree with the Institute for Fiscal Studies and her own Chancellor Rachel Reeves that taxes would rise under Labour? Instead of addressing the issue head-on, Rayner dodged around the question, offering vague responses and pivoting to rehearsed talking points rather than providing a clear answer. This moment encapsulated her disconnect from the real working-class issues she claims to represent. Here she was, in a prime position to explain how Labour's tax policies would supposedly benefit the ordinary worker. But instead, she fumbled the chance to speak clearly.
Well, I think the whole House will have heard the Deputy Prime Minister disregard 5 million hard-working small business owners. These are the publicans, the shopkeepers, the family running a local cafe. None of those count as working people to her. Now, Labour gave a clear commitment not to raise national insurance. The independent IFS have given their view on this. They say that raising employer national insurance is a tax on working people. Even the Chancellor said that raising employer national insurance was a jobs tax that will make each new recruit more expensive and increase the cost to business. So does she agree with the IFS and her own Chancellor?
Mr Speaker, I remember the party opposite, what they said to business. What was it, F to business? Whereas this party held an international investment summit last week, which poured £63 million into our economy. We're pro-business, pro-worker and getting on with fixing the mess that they left behind.
So I think we can take it from that answer that the Deputy Prime Minister doesn't agree with the IFS, and I suppose it shouldn't come as a surprise that she doesn't agree with her Chancellor, but does she agree with this? And I quote, "Working people will pay when employers pass on the hike in national insurance." Mr Speaker, these are her words. So does she at least agree with herself?
Mr Speaker, what I'm incredibly proud of is this week, this government brought in a new employment bill, which will raise the living standards of 10 million workers. Would the shadow Deputy Prime Minister like to apologise for the hike in taxes, 70-year hike in taxes that he put on working people, the crashing of the economy and the disaster that he left behind?
Well, she mentions her policy. Let's be clear, it's a £5 billion hit to the British economy, and that's her own assessment. Mr Speaker, I think that following these answers, there will be millions of working people now even more worried about the tax rises coming their way in next week's budget.
Does she even understand what working-class people need? Because when asked a question that directly concerns them, whether Labour's tax hikes will make life harder, she had no real response. It's laughable, but also deeply revealing. If Rayner can't defend her own party's fiscal policies, What does that say about her grasp on the realities of working-class life? Labour's proposal to raise taxes is no small issue, particularly when small businesses and their employees, the true backbone of the working class, stand to suffer the most. Yet when pressed, Rayner seemed more focused on avoiding the question than on giving a credible answer. It was a missed opportunity, one that exposed the widening gulf between Labour's rhetoric and the reality of how their policies will impact working people. For someone who wears their working-class background like a badge of honour, Rayner seems astonishingly out of touch when it comes to the real concerns of working-class families. If she can't even defend Labour's own tax strategy in a public forum, how can she claim to represent those who will be most affected by these policies?